the reason this record happened is because a heart is not complete until it's really broken.
The departure of Steve Perry from Journey was a major shock to fans, but the reasons behind his decision have remained a mystery. For the first time, Steve Perry opens up about his departure from Journey.
The feeling just got very clear to me that I need to just stop. And I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go. All I knew is that I can't keep doing what I'm doing. I need to just stop because this is not going anywhere good.
No.
In this video, we will look into what Steve Perry, 75, finally reveals about leaving Journey, offering a unique and revealing look at one of the most iconic moments in rock history. So, without much ado, let's get right in. Steve Perry, the voice behind some of the most iconic rock ballads of all time, was born Stephen Ray Perry on January 22, 1949, in Hanford, California. His parents, who hailed from the Azores, instilled in him a deep appreciation for music, especially his father, Raymond Perry, who was a vocalist and co-owner of a radio station. But life wasn't all harmonious notes for young Steve. His parents separated when he was just 8 years old, leaving him to navigate a childhood that would eventually shape him into one of the most memorable voices in rock history. Growing up, music became Perry's refuge, especially after he and his mother moved to his grandparents' dairy farm following his parents' split.
She was 17, beauty queen. I met her in a magazine.
On his 12th birthday, his mother gifted him a gold eighth-note pendant, a symbol of her belief in his musical future, a pendant Perry would wear for luck throughout his career. In his early 20s, Perry's pursuit of music led him to Sacramento, where he formed a band named Ice with 16-year-old Scott Matthews, who would later become a successful music producer. They recorded at the famed Record Plant Studios in Los Angeles, rubbing shoulders, at least in spirit, with Stevie Wonder. But despite their talent and ambition, Ice dissolved due to a lack of management and the practical challenges of keeping a band together. Undeterred, Perry moved to Thousand Oaks, California, and joined a progressive rock band called Pieces. But, after a year and a half of trying and failing to secure a record deal, Pieces, too, disbanded, leaving Perry at a crossroads. He auditioned for other bands, including an unsuccessful attempt to replace Rod Evans in Captain Beyond, but nothing seemed to stick. At this point, Perry was drifting, trying to find his place in the world of music. He ended up fronting a band called Alien Project in Banta, California, and it seemed like things might finally be coming together. But tragedy struck when the band's bassist, Richard Michaels, was killed in a car accident. Devastated, Perry considered giving up music altogether. However, his mother, Mary, urged him to keep going and not give up on the dream that had driven him for so long. It was this encouragement that kept Perry in the game, leading to the fateful phone call that would change his life. Walter Herbie. Herbert, the manager of a struggling San Francisco-based band called Journey, had been given a demo of Perry singing "If You Need Me, Call Me" by Alien Project.
I just left it alone and thought I'd already lived the dream of dreams. There's nothing much more to do and in that area, and so I'll just leave it alone.
Herbert was looking for a new lead singer to replace Robert Fleischman, who hadn't quite clicked with Journey's then-progressive rock style. Perry's voice, rich with emotion and possessing a unique blend of rock edge and soulful warmth, caught Herbert's attention. It was during a sound check in Long Beach that Perry got his first real shot with Journey. With Fleischman off the stage, Perry grabbed the microphone and performed a song with the band. His voice filled the venue, and it was clear to everyone there that something magical had just happened. Soon after, Perry was informed that he was Journey's new lead singer, and the band's sound was about to undergo a dramatic transformation. Perry's debut with Journey came on October 28, 1977, in San Francisco. The reception was mixed. Longtime fans of the band's earlier, more progressive sound weren't sure what to make of this new voice and the pop-influenced direction the band seemed to be heading. But Perry was undeterred. His first album with Journey, Infinity, released in 1978, was a turning point. It featured Lights, a song Perry had written, and it showcased the band's new sound, one that was more melodic, more accessible, and ultimately more commercially viable. With Perry at the helm, Journey's popularity skyrocketed. He provided lead vocals on 9 of the band's albums, including Evolution, 1979, Departure, 1980, and Escape, 1981, the latter of which reached number 1 on the Billboard charts. Perry's voice was the heart of hits like Don't Stop Believin', Open Arms, and Faithfully.
Just a small town girl living in a lonely world.
But the journey wasn't without its challenges. Perry's rise to fame came with personal and professional costs. After the release of Frontiers in 1983, Perry took a break from the band to work on his first solo album, Street Talk. The album was a huge success, with singles like Oh Sherry and Foolish Heart becoming hits in their own right.
Oh, Sherry, our love holds on.
However, Perry's time away from Journey created tension within the band. Perry returned to Journey to work on Raised on Radio in 1986, but the process was fraught with difficulty. His mother was gravely ill, and Perry often left the studio to be by her side. The constant interruptions and the emotional toll it took on Perry strained his relationship with the band. After his mother's passing and the subsequent tour, Perry was physically and emotionally drained. Journey went on hiatus in 1987, and Perry, exhausted from the pace of fame, decided to step away from the band. When Steve Perry left Journey, it was as if the heart of the band had suddenly stopped beating. Fans were stunned, unable to comprehend how the voice that had defined a generation of rock music could just walk away. The announcement came like a thunderbolt, shaking the music world to its core. Journey was at the height of their fame, riding the waves of their success, and yet the very voice that had taken them there was gone. The bond between Steve and the music, between Steve and his fans, had always seemed unbreakable. His departure felt like a wound that would never heal. Some thought it was health issues. Others guessed there were problems within the band. But Steve never said a word. For years, he stayed silent, never explaining why he made such a big decision. Fans kept wondering, but Steve remained closed off. Now, at 75, after all these years, he's finally shared his story. Leaving a band like Journey at the height of its success might seem like an impossible decision, but for Steve Perry, it was a necessary one. The journey leading up to his departure in 1987 is filled with personal struggles, the pressures of fame, and a longing for something more meaningful in his life. While Perry is reminded of that time, it becomes clear that his choice to walk away was about much more than just leaving a band. It was about saving himself. So let's see what Steve Perry finally reveals why he left Journey.
And I think it leaves room for the opportunity for other enhancements, dare I say, to replace some of the lack of luster that it once had.
By the time 1987 rolled around, Steve Perry had been with Journey for nearly a decade. They were one of the biggest bands in the world, but success came at a cost. The constant touring, recording, and expectations of being at the top began to take a toll on Perry. The passion that once drove him to sing with all his heart was fading, and he found himself struggling to connect with the music he once loved so dearly. Perry recalls, It was a combination of the passion for music that had left me. I could not, find the honest passion for singing.
It was a combination of the passion for music had left me. I could not, you know, find the honest passion for singing.
For a man who had built his life around his voice and his love for music, this realization was devastating. The thrill of performing, which had once been the fuel that kept him going, was now replaced with a sense of emptiness. Eventually, the feeling just got very clear to me that I need to just stop, he says. But stopping wasn't easy. Walking away from Journey meant leaving behind everything he had worked so hard for, everything that defined him as an artist. It was a terrifying prospect, but Perry knew it was the only way to preserve what was left of his love for music and his sanity. So finally, in 1987, Steve Perry made the bold decision to walk away from Journey. He didn't have a plan and didn't know what his next steps would be, but he knew he couldn't continue on the path he was on. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do or where I was going to go. All I knew was that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I need to just stop because this is not going anywhere good, he recalls. This wasn't just about leaving a band. It was about stepping back from a lifestyle that was slowly destroying him. When asked if drugs and women played a part in his decision, Perry is candid. Certainly, drugs and drinking were part of it, of course. I mean, that came with the times, he acknowledges. The fame, the success, the adulation, it all came with a dark side that Perry couldn't escape. After leaving Journey, Perry found himself at a crossroads. He was no longer the lead singer of one of the biggest bands in the world. He was just Steve, a man searching for purpose and trying to reconnect with himself. One of the first things he did was buy a Harley-Davidson and ride through the California countryside where he grew up.
I bought a Harley-Davidson in Visalia, California, because my hometown was Hanford, California, about 18 miles away. And I would drive that Harley in the summertime.
The rides through the Central Valley brought back memories of his childhood, of simpler times before fame and success complicated his life. I was reconnecting with my childhood, he says. These rides also provided a way for Perry to deal with the grief of losing his mother, who had passed away some years earlier. I was reconnecting with the loss of my mother that I'd lost, he adds. Visiting her grave and the graves of other departed relatives became a regular ritual, a way for Perry to ground himself and make sense of his life. Despite the newfound peace he found on his motorcycle rides, there was still a part of Perry that was deeply unsettled. The very thing that had once brought him so much joy, music, was now a source of pain. I'll tell you what I did not do, is I couldn't go near music because I had this PTSD thing with music still going on, Perry confesses. The trauma of his past experiences with Journey had left a scar, and he was afraid that he might never regain his passion for music. For a long time, Perry avoided anything related to music. He thought he had already lived the dream, and that there was nothing left for him in that world. I just left it alone and thought I'd already lived the dream of dreams, he says.
When you do get a chance to finally live that dream that you wanted when you were 7 years old, 8, 9, 12 years old, and you get it. Now, I'm not complaining, Dan. I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you my heart.
But deep down, there was a part of him that missed it, even if he wasn't ready to admit it. As time passed, Perry began to slowly re-enter the world he had left behind, though not by choice. It was a chance encounter with filmmaker Patty Jenkins that would eventually bring him back to music. Jenkins, who was working on the movie Monster, wanted to use Journey's "Don't Stop Believin'" in the film. It led to a meeting between Perry and Jenkins, and the two quickly became friends. Jenkins introduced Perry to a special project she was working on, a Lifetime special called 5, about cancer survivors. As Perry watched the editing process, one scene in particular caught his attention. It was a shot of a woman sitting on the patio of a hospital, a survivor of cancer, and something about her captivated Perry. I said, "Go back to who is that?" And she said, "Well, that's Kelly Nash," Perry recalls. Kelly was a PhD psychologist who had battled breast cancer, and there was something about her that struck a chord with Perry. Despite not usually reaching out, Perry felt compelled to meet Kelly. "I don't know. There's something about her," he told Jenkins. After waiting anxiously for 2 weeks, Perry finally received an email from Kelly, and they arranged to meet. What followed was a love story that would change Perry's life forever. Kelly Nash was unlike anyone Perry had ever met. Despite her battle with cancer, she was vibrant, intelligent, and full of life. They quickly became inseparable, and Perry found himself falling deeply in love with her. "There was a lot going on in my life, but nothing like this had happened," Perry says. The connection between them was instant and intense, and it wasn't long before Perry realized that Kelly was the love of his life. Kelly's strength and positivity inspired Perry in ways he never expected. She had been fighting cancer for 3 years, but you would never know it from her demeanor. "She was 3 years fighting breast cancer, but you'd never know it," Perry says, admiring her resilience. For the first time in years, Perry felt truly alive, and he began to emerge from the isolation he had imposed on himself. But their time together was short-lived. A year and a half after they met, Kelly passed away, leaving Perry devastated. The loss was profound, and it took Perry back to a dark place. But before she died, Kelly made Perry promise her one thing: that he wouldn't go back into isolation. She said, "If something was to happen to me, promise me you won't go back into isolation." This promise would become a guiding force for Perry in the years to come. It was a request that carried the weight of their entire relationship. A relationship that had brought so much meaning and joy to both of their lives. For Perry, it was a way to honor Kelly's memory and keep her spirit alive. After Kelly's death, Perry faced the difficult task of rebuilding his life without her. The grief was overwhelming, but he knew he had to keep his promise to her. Slowly, he began to re-engage with the world, including music. It wasn't easy, but Perry found solace in the creative process. Music, which had once been a source of pain, started to become a way for him to express his emotions and heal. This journey of recovery eventually led Perry back to the recording studio. In 2018, he released Traces, his first solo album in nearly 25 years. The album was deeply personal, a reflection of everything he had been through, and it was dedicated to Kelly. "I kept the promise, and I dedicated the record to her," Perry says. Traces was a labor of love, a way for Perry to channel his grief and honor the memory of the woman who had changed his life. The songs on the album are filled with emotion, capturing the highs and lows of Perry's journey over the past few decades. As Perry reflects on his life, he is grateful for the experiences that shaped him, even the painful ones. "I think that the love I had for her has opened my heart up again," he says. It's clear that Perry's journey, with all its ups and downs, has brought him to a place of understanding and acceptance. Today, Perry continues to make music, but he does it on his own terms. He no longer feels the pressure to be something he's not, and he's finally found a balance between his love for music and his need for peace and tranquility. Perry's journey is ongoing, but he's learned to appreciate every step along the way. Now, what do you think about Steve Perry's stance on leaving the band? Let us know in the comment box below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.